everyone. Welcome to today's live stream from the In Learning Partnership. I'm Lena Darnay with Keep Indiana Learning, a proud partner in the In Learning Partnership alongside the Indiana Department of Education and 5 Stars Learning Lab. This month, we are celebrating 2022 in review and looking at those essential partnerships in our schools that make teaching so powerful across content areas, grade levels, even roles in the building. We are always partnering with our learning partners. And today we are celebrating with an 8th grade partnership with Gina and Haley from Eastern Green. Thank you both so much for being here this morning.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. We really appreciate it.
Oh, I'm thrilled. So I'm going to pull your slides up and then I'm going to let you share and celebrate each other in this partnership.
Okay, thank you.
All right, take it away, Gina and Haley.
Okay, well, we are going to present to you guys today some of the stuff that we have found helpful in our classroom. So we titled this Engaging Students with Current Technology in Math and Language Arts. So, okay. So, like she said, I'm Gina Mitchell. This is my 17th year teaching 8th grade language arts at Eastern Green Middle School. So I've been here for a while and have kind of seen technology change. Being a language arts teacher, we all do, but with researching processes and things like that, I have to keep up with technology. So, the learning styles will match the kids. So that's who I am.
And I'm Haley Bowersock. This is my 8th year teaching 8th grade math at Eastern Green. I also teach Algebra 1 as one section. What I found this year is I'm trying to integrate the more of technology in math. You don't see a lot of it kind of in the books and out there. So it's hard to do math sometimes online. Kids don't always like to, but we're trying to find fun and engaging ways to get them entertained, but still getting that math practice in. So some of our favorite technology that we use, these are kind of sites that are outside of what we make. We use Bookit a lot. IXL, our school just got a couple years ago, so we are trying to push that. It's good practice for the kids. It gives them a lot of practice problems, and they get that instant feedback. I use Kahoot a lot. Bookit is very similar to Kahoot, but the kids like to play their individual games on Bookit. And another math-specific site that I use is Edia. They give a lot of practice, and it can turn into IXL where you have to get so many questions right before they get to move on. And so we kind of make it a game sometimes in my class that who can get the assignment done the quickest or who can get the most questions right. We kind of put that little game piece into it, and they eat it up. Mm-hmm. I've used Pear Deck some and Edpuzzle some, but with our school going to 1-to-1 very soon, I expect that I will use those more pretty soon, but Mrs. Mitchell uses them already right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really like, and I want to say too, with Bookit and Kahoot, I really like those two for language arts. Mrs. Bowersock actually introduced me to Bookit, and it's almost kind of tricking them a little bit because they really like to play it, but then they're learning those skills as well. And we have to dip into the technology. They're already using it, and we can sometimes I don't even know fully 100% about the program, and then we can just say, well, they'll teach us, they'll tell us. And so that's kind of changed. But with Pear Deck, it's really nice with language arts. I make my own slides on there sometimes. It's kind of like a glorified PowerPoint, really is what it is, but it's very, very interactive with the kids. I like it. You can have them go at their own pace with the slides, but then you can also make it live and everybody is working. That gets a little bit crazy sometimes, but if you want to know, like the instant feedback, then that's nice. Pear Deck has really nice built-in screens too that you can use. Some social questions, like how are you feeling today? And if you're doing whole group instruction with them, then that's sometimes good to know. Well, 10 people out of the class are having a really bad day, or today's a good day. So I like those little built-in things. The Edpuzzle is really nice for language arts because I use it a lot for inferencing. I know when they take the iLearn, there's kind of a misconception that, or just in general with other classes, there's kind of a misconception that you go into English class and you read articles and stories, and then that's what you do. But really, when they leave my class, they should be able to read anything. They should, be able to read anything and make inferences. So with Edpuzzle, we can do video clips. I use the movie Up every year. And there's, the really sad scene where there are no words, but there's so much going on. And so with Edpuzzle, it's nice because you can play it, stop and talk about it. They answer a question, and they really like it. They don't complain too much when they do Edpuzzle. It's very, very structured for them. So those are the two that I really like. We are a Google school, so we use Jamboard. We use
Google Slides, Google Sheets.
Yeah. The Jamboards, I love the Jamboards. Now, the Jamboard's kind of like Pear Deck. If everybody's doing it at the same time, in my opinion, unless you have some sort of structure, it's going to become crazy. So you can have them, you can give them their own Jamboard, and there are no lines on it, so it's just kind of like the space where they can, for language arts, they can brainstorm if we're going to write a paragraph or a paper. I think with math you could put problems on there too. So I use Jamboard a lot. So
yeah, for Jamboard, it can also be nice, especially when we were e-learning and virtual. I could set up a Jamboard and tell a student, go create a page and show me your answer for number 5. And so they can work that out, and I can go through and we can look, and did we solve this problem correctly? That was one of the more simpler uses of Jamboard. But we also can do projects and create Jamboards, create a nice, if we're creating a map or something like that, it's very easy for the students to build their own map. And I kind of talk about a project here in a little bit, how we utilize that in math. We also last year got our ViewSonic boards. So our smart boards do a lot for us, and we have polls that we can use. We have different recording or tools that are already in our boards, and so our kids love going up to the board and getting to use the spinners and timers, and then just showing their work. They think it's awesome to get to go use that technology.
Well, and then the boards with instant feedback, and I think Mrs. Bowers touched on that a little bit, but that is huge. That is for math and language arts. I would think for all subjects, you can do a poll, you can do a 3-minute quiz, you can do a 2-question, 3-question quiz, and then it automatically tells you this many people got it correct, and it's amazing. So it totally guides our teaching. If they all get this, then I don't have to spend too long or no time on it. But if they're really struggling with this, so I love that. I've also used, I just kind of remembered, I can't remember if it's through Google, but it's called My Map. I think it is through Google. My Maps. And I've used that for writing projects when I want to do like cross-curricular with social studies. And I've taught them how to make maps. And then, we do a unit where they have to write a journal entry from first person from their character for narrative writing, and they have to create a map of where they live, and it's really cool. So I like to use that too. So
this year, I know I've kind of focused on more of the instant feedback and more of the digital assignments for math. And so on the screen, there's a few that I really like, and I just make different versions of them a lot of the time. The first one are digital mazes. I took a course over the summer, and they kind of taught me how to make all of these different online digital assignments. And so the digital mazes, you can see if they get the answer correct, it turns green and it shows them the next path. If they get it wrong, it turns red and they don't get to move on until they get it right. So for me, I know if kids are getting this done and submitting it, then they understood it. If the kids are not getting it done, I know they're struggling, and so I can go help those kids that are not getting it quite. So it helps me kind of zero in on who's struggling and who's already moved on and ready for the next topic. I also like to do mystery puzzles. They're I saw a lot of pixel arts lately, but I'm not very good at pixel art. So I try to use the mystery puzzles. So the kids will answer these questions, they'll enter their answers, and part of the picture will show up. And I tell the kids, you have to watch your picture when you push enter, because if it didn't change, then you have gotten it wrong. And you can adapt it where it turns red for them. But they are loving those 2 types of assignments this year. I try to fit one in every unit, maybe not every day, but every unit at least include one kind of digital assignment that we're doing. It saved me a bunch of time. The picture at the bottom of the slide, that used to be a cut and paste activity. And it would take us a full class period because it took the kids about 10, 15 minutes to cut out all the pieces and then try to work it out and glue them back. I adapted that to a digital, it's in Google Slides actually, where I just snip the pieces and they get to drag and drop into the right area. So we get that done in 5 minutes instead of a whole class period. So it does allow us to do more. They like it because they don't have to write a lot. They get to just drag and drop, and it's quick and easy for me to grade. That has been a lot of, I want kids to get their feedback much quicker. And if I have to grade 120 papers, then that doesn't always happen the very next day. And so the kids really enjoy those digital assignments. We've done escape rooms with Google Forms, and I've set it up a lot of the time where they can't move on until they get that answer right. And so some of them get frustrated, but then I try to put a story with it, like you have a zombie apocalypse starting, because I'm a big fan of The Walking Dead. So they know that. And a lot of my escape rooms have that, you better hurry before you get eaten, or you better hurry before something happens. And so they like that part of it, and we can put timers to it also to see if they can get it before the end of class. But the instant feedback, the instant feedback is what I'm really working on this year, and I think the kids love it too because they know exactly where they're struggling.
Well, the instant feedback is a game changer. It's just like a game changer in education when you can get that, because it totally guides. I will say too, you said timers. I set timers a lot. I know that that's not a huge technology thing, but it's really changed my way of teaching. I mean, through the ViewSonic, there's stopwatches and timers, but you can just get it online too. But I'll set, like yesterday, I said 10 minutes. We've worked on this for 2 days. This is it. Like, you have to get this done. And I walk around, but the timers are really good. And I will say the bottom thing that Mrs. Bowersock was talking about, I've not used exactly that, but I have used it digitally to where they can move pieces around. I did the 5 parts of a story, and with the witch's hat or the roller coaster, with the rising action and the climax, I've done that to where they grab the climax and they put it somewhere, or they'll take a quote. They'll take a quote from the story and they'll move it to, okay, is that the climax? Is that the rising action? Is that the falling action? And them just being able to move that, like not with their hands, but like with a mouse, seems like it clicked more. Like you have these learners that are like kinesthetic learners that need to move. So I think you can reach all learners or most learners with the technology. Okay, so this is a Mrs. Bowersock has done. I'll let her talk about hers too. This was over a research project over the catacombs, because we did Edgar Allan Poe. We read that a lot for our fiction stories. But this was really nice. This was really structured. This was a hyperdoc, and it's kind of organizing for me too, to say, okay, this is step 1, and then number 11 is your ultimate goal. That's what we're going to try to get to, but we have to do all of these steps. And the kids really like it because they said, okay, I got to stay on step 1. When I master that, I can move to step 2. And so for me personally, just to stay organized, I liked it. So I know if I'm kind of staying organized, then maybe they're staying organized too, but good.
Mine is very similar. I did a review for solving equations, and I made a crime scene backdrop, and they had little evidence markers that they had to go through and find and click on them and solve the clue. And then they have to put all their answers into a Google form, and the Google form wouldn't let them move on until they got all of the questions right. And so that was easy for the kids. Hey, I'm stuck on clue number 5. And so I could help them and kind of zero in on what type of question that was. And then once they put all their clues in, it told them, congratulations, you solved the crime. And all the clues were either here's just an equation to solve or word problems that were based on the clue. So like there was it was kind of like a cop crime scene. Somebody had been injured. They had the body outlined. And so they had to come bring a gurney in. And so they had a word problem. The door is such and such wide, and they had to write an equation and solve it and then decide if the bed was going to fit into the doorway. So it kind of was bringing in multiple type questions, multiple thinking levels, because a lot of them just want to solve the question. But then when there's multiple questions inside that, it was a good way to wrap it all together and bring it into the real world type questions, which is hard for students to do a lot of the time.
And we'll talk. I mean, I will talk about that. I know she does too, but we do lots of real world projects in our classroom too, and we use technology to be able to get there. So. This is, I can talk a little bit about this. This is the one on the left was an actual physical escape room. The digital escape rooms, I know Mrs. Bowersock has done. So, and I don't think I've done any digital ones, but I really like the physical ones where they actually move around the room, and they're using technology when they do this because, maybe one of the clues is, okay, you have to use my maps, and, here's the clue, or use Google Earth, find this on Google Earth, or, maybe they have to find a video or something, but I really like that. They get excited about that. Whenever she does the digital ones, I do the in-person or vice versa. The second one is a hyperdoc as well. This was an actual mock trial that we did. I was trying to teach them using evidence and making inferences. And so we actually had a 2-week trial to where they took on the roles of the judge and the prosecutors and the defendants. And we actually put the Giver book on trial because that book has been banned a lot. And so they did great. And I used the hyperdocs to keep everything organized. And, they had to do their research before they did the trial. And I guess the second page there, the one on the right, is just the more of that hyperdoc. So.
Now, we use technology for our students, but this year has been a big changer for me. I've started more standard-based grading so I can understand if the students are getting each standard. And so what I've created for myself is using Google Sheets is a standard tracker, is what I call it. And so I give the kids a level. So level 1, 2, 3, or 4. They kind of line up with iLearn proficiency levels. So like a level 3 is at proficiency, a level 4 would be above, 2 would be approaching, and then 1 is below. And so this gives me a visual. I just did, I even forget what it's called, but I put in a score and then it will color code for me. It's like conditional formatting, I think, in Google Sheets. So if I enter a 1, it's going to show up as red. That means they're below. If I put in a 2, it's going to turn yellow. And then 3s and 4s are green because they're at that proficiency or even above. So if I take a little bit more time, I can look and see 3s or 4s can differentiate. But this gives me a very good visual of how well my students are doing, because sometimes it takes forever to flip through all your papers or all your grade books. And so I like this visual look. I can see if there's a lot of red on this standard, I got to hit that again. And so when I do get done with a chapter or a unit, then I always do a spiral review. And so I pick those standards that have a lot of red. So we're hitting those standards again and again and again. Hopefully they're building on their understanding and we'll finally get them to a green. On the left is my master. So this one has all my standards and I put their final attempt, my most up-to-date attempt. A lot of them, I do multiple attempts on these different types of standard quizzes. So on the right, you'll see this was one particular standard, and I did 2 attempts on each standard in that chapter. And so I can see their growth from attempt to attempt, or if they've even gone down. I've had some students like they had it at first, but with time, they've forgotten it. So that tells me they really didn't have it. They just understood it for that day. So it's definitely helping me with the feedback of my students' learning. And hopefully I can use that even more as I go throughout the year and definitely reiterate those skills and those practices so we can hopefully maybe not
Mhm.
realistically, but hopefully everybody will get to that green. It may not be possible for some, but I definitely have encouraged growth this year. So I do give them treats. We track our growth on a chart, and each class period, they have their first attempt, and then for the test, I say, okay, let's as a class get an 80% this next time as the class average. That way, if they meet that goal, they're kind of motivated. Eighth graders still need that exterior motivation to improve. So I bribe them with candy basically, or some kind of treat.
Mhm.
And I'm like, if we can, as a class, get this, and then we can have that treat, that surprise, whatever it may be.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, I do the same thing, and there are studies that show, you shouldn't do that. Like there should be like the feeling that they get whenever they learn it, should be enough, but it isn't. So we're going to be like real on that, but it is nice when that happens. But I like what Mrs. Bowersock does. We were talking beforehand, and I really do think that this is adaptable to any subject. Is it easier to do it with some subjects? Absolutely. Like I think the math standards are very clear, cut and dry. I told Mrs. Bowersock, for language arts, how would I do the inferencing one? That they do that all the time, every day, whenever they're in here. But I really like this, and I think that I'm gonna steal it. Like I'm gonna do it. So, okay. I guess one thing we wanted to say too is pencil paper is still okay. And tell them what you said to me, like right whenever you had all of this technology, you were so excited, but then because I think that's so true.
So after my summer training, I was super excited to make all these digital assignments to put everything on the computer. And as I started the year, almost every assignment they were doing had some digital aspect to it. Sorry. And it got too much for the kids. We were losing out on that good practice when I was spending more time about, okay, this is how we type it in. And so I had to rein myself back in that we need to start with paper pencil sometimes, or some topics don't fit well with technology. For 8th grade, we do a big chapter on exponents. And it's very hard for students to type in exponents into programs just using an equation editor. And so for that chapter specifically, I kind of reined back in the digital, and I created more, still interactive, but more mazes that were paper based, or puzzles where they had to match different sides together. Scavenger hunts, I still do very often. They are paper pencil, gets them moving, but it is very nice to have that paper aspect to it also, because not all kids are going to love the digital. And I have to realize that. But for iLearn too, they're going to have to be able to type in and do some math digitally as well. So finding that nice balance definitely will help.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is I don't know if as teachers we ever get to that balance. I mean, some of us might get close, but it's a very hard thing to master, I think. But and I think we do have to remember that they live in a digital world. And if we're not incorporating digital things and technology into our lessons, I think we're doing a disservice to them. But on the flip side of that, you can't lose the content. You can't lose the standard and the thinking process. And so what is on the screen is what we've actually been doing the last few days. So with this, on the very right-hand side, we use a lot of Smeckens, for language arts. She's great, and she has a lot of good things. But the one on the right is just their thinking process before they do anything. And so honestly, I've kind of taken a step back this year, and we spend really the first 9 weeks thinking. That I've realized, if I want them to write a paragraph, they can't write a paragraph until we think about it. And some of them don't know how to do that. I mean, as teachers, we all know that. They live in a digital world. They don't have to think. And so that's where we run into issues. Like, we want them to think, but they don't know how. So sometimes it's just good to get a big piece of butcher paper and to write down their thoughts. The one on the right is the reading voice and the thinking voice. So we're teaching them how to elaborate, but then we're teaching them how to find evidence. And they get that. The two on the right is like vocabulary. And yeah, I could have given them a vocabulary worksheet, but that was a 2-day process. We started with one word. And by the time the project was over, they had 50 to 60 to 70 vocabulary words they were working with. And then we took them and we categorized them with like very high level thinking. And so the paper pencil, we can't go away from that. But we're in a world that can't be all you do. There are certain things in language arts, like really hard grammar, the gerunds, the infinitives, the past, the present participles. That for me, it's a worksheet. Like, I'm going to give you a worksheet, and then there's tons of examples on there, and we're going to go through every single one of them until you understand the process on how to find that. What does that look like? And sometimes that takes a pencil and a worksheet. That's just, how they're going to learn it. So I just don't think we can get away from that for sure.
So our projects that we do kind of incorporate some of the paper pencil aspects that we were talking about, and then we also bring in that technology. So some of the ones that I do a water park project, and I use Jamboard. I let them use Google Slides. Basically, they're creating a map of their amusement park that they want to create. They have certain requirements. You have to have so many bathrooms, so many different pieces, but then they can put it wherever they want. They can create it however they want. I showed them how I could have used Jamboard, so give them that example, but I told them you can use any type that you want. Once we build the water parks, then they print them out and we do different calculations, like what is the slope from these two, or is this going to work with these different attractions side by side? So we bring in kind of those real world thinking problems and then put the math into it also. Now, I don't do as many projects. I'm going to try to do more this year, but some of mine are just smaller. They may take like a day or two. So we do a lot of solving mysteries, or I do a project with Who Stole the Painting. So you have this set up, this museum has a security system, but only the first 7 feet are working. You have these different suspects who knew the security system was not working properly. And so we bring in data. It was for scatter plots and best fit lines. And so we collect data. So I have the kids wear their good shoes, and I said, we're going to jump and see how far you jump. And then we measure how high they or how tall they are. And we make a table. Then they, on paper, make the scatter plot and draw their best fit line that they think would go through it. And then we take that data and then use technology with Excel or Google Sheets. And I show them how to find the best fit line using technology, which is one of our standards as well. And so it really is kind of fun for them because, for one, they get to measure their heights and jump and actually be active. And then we get to look and see, okay, this was 7th period's graph, but let's look at 3rd period's graph. They have taller people. How is their graph different than ours? And so it's a good representation of, like, this is an estimation. How can it change? And we look at the different physical factors that can do that. I also have another one. It's more of a spiral review, but it's this evil genius is trying to take over the world, and he's left clues at these different world sites. And so what we've done in the past is you use my maps from Google, and they have to create a map of where he's gone in the world. And then we solve the problems and hopefully catch the evil genius before he sets off his world conquering device. So it's very fun for the kids. They hate that one because there's no calculators available. The part of the story tells them it sets off the world conquering device if you use a calculator. And so they get really frustrated sometimes, but it's good for them to not have that technology aspect and actually have to go back to paper and pencil on those. But it's really fun. They create the journey and see where in the world he's actually going. It's not just a place written down. It's an actual place that he's going and putting off these clues.
Well, I think too, again, and that sounds like totally negative, but sometimes, like, we're kind of tricking them into doing these fun things. When Mrs. Bowersock puts a thing that says evil genius, you got to find, that becomes in their brains like, oh, this is really cool. But then she's going to like sneak in learning things. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I will say something that popped into my mind that I don't think that we had talked about, but I'm getting ready to use Canva. I don't know if that is something that teachers know, but I think that you get like a free
Education accounts are free.
There's a free education account, but oh my gosh, it's the I have a second job outside of school. My son and I run a podcast nonprofit, and we use Canva all the time for our flyers and for things like that. But you can also adapt that to the classroom if you wanted the kids to make a flyer, or even like a for point of view, like a Facebook page for a character. We're getting ready to use it for point of view for the characters in the Monkey's Paw and the Telltale Heart, and they're going to make, something. I haven't decided yet, but they're going to use Canva. So, and I guess one thing too, I will say with the project page, I'm a big project person, and I'm very, very real world, and I always have been. Ever since I started teaching, I always think in my brain. I always think, our goal is to really get them to survive outside of the school walls. Like at the end of the day, isn't that like what we're trying to do? Like we're trying to get them to function in society. So I think that you have to give them a different audience other than us. You have to, make it to where they understand like how big the world is. So a lot of times just getting them to observe before they actually do something is good, because they don't observe a lot. They're on their phones, they're playing their games, they're not observing, what's around them. So some of the projects that I have done, I've done TED Talks with the kids, where if you go on the the TED Talk website, some of my kids are actually on there because they did an official TED Talk. So we did that, and we used YouTube to look at other TED Talks. I do a big health fair, to where we use a lot of tools, a lot of Google sharing tools, and they do a big disability research project, and then we set up an actual health fair with booths, and they get to present what they learned. I was talking about authors, or I was talking about giving them a bigger audience. We've written letters to the editor for years. Our local paper has been really good at publishing those. So, you can't have a bigger audience than the actual world that's reading the paper. We've written letters to authors, and we've been fortunate enough to have those authors write us back. And, we've used a lot of sharing devices for that. I'm kind of an on your whim teacher as well. If I see something that I think is really cool, then I'm going to put a unit about it. So I remember one year some of the kids were saying that, that our school could be improved with like wheelchair ramps or something like that. So we ended up doing like a project, and I had them create a presentation for our superintendent, and just tell him their thoughts. And he came over and listened to them. And it was really cool that they were observant and then put this together, and they had to use technology to do that. I think we're both like very real world people. And we want to give them a different audience sometimes other than us. So trying to think of what else. I feel like 30 minutes is a lot for 17 years and 8 years. So if anybody has any questions, though, I guess we're allowed to do this. My email is gmitchell@egreen with an E. So EGREENE .k12.in.us. Did I put that in the right order? Did I go backwards? Okay, I did. So, okay. And then I'll let you, hers is just H. Bowersock.
So HBOWERSOCK @egreen.k12.in.us.
So yeah, just let us know if anything comes up, and we're by no means experts. We just, you do something for so long and you figure things out along the way. So just let us know.
Yeah.
Ladies, this has been so much fun. And I feel like I could have done #learning partner with so many of the tech tools that you mentioned, because Canva is like my best friend. And I use it daily. And it saves me so much time and makes me look so good. It's like the perfect best friend who is always telling you that you are fabulous and you look good and what you're putting out into the world is amazing. And the two of you together, it just reminds me how powerful it is when you have like a bestie in your school that you can plan with. And even though you're not in the same content areas, that almost makes it better, because then you're being more innovative with your approach to what could this look like. And I just thought it was fabulous. And I appreciate both of you so very much. And thank you for joining us at the In Learning Partnership December live stream event celebrating learning partners. This was an excellent example of how powerful teaching is when you do it together. Thanks, everyone. We appreciate you, and we'll see you on the next one.